Hey, welcome to another wrap-up video. It is March now, so we have to talk about all the books I read in February. I have 12 books here. 2 of them were DNFs. One of them is a poetry book, and then the other 9 are just regular books. I do have quite a bit to say this month about the reads that I had. I know February is usually a month where a lot of people read romance books, but I am drifting so far away from the romance genre, and I will explain that later when I talk about certain books, but I did read a few. So with that being said, we're just gonna get right into this. First up, I do have my first DNF of the month. I got 36% of the way through this. This is The Half Moon by Mary Beth Keane. This one is just like a literary fiction, contemporary fiction. It is about our main character, Malcolm. He works at this bar, and he's worked at this bar called The Half Moon for a very, very long time, but he's always dreamed of owning his own bar. So his boss is retiring, and he's actually offering Malcolm to buy the bar from him and he can take it over. So of course he wants to do that, but he's kind of going through struggles with his life and personal issues. He has his wife, Jessica, who we also get, this is told in third person, but we get like her point of view and her story. They're having a hard time together. They have relationship issues. She is trying to have a baby, but she's having issues with that too, with her health and everything. They're each having personal problems separately, which is causing an issue in their relationship. It just deals with things that pop up in life for everybody and hardships you can go through. Jessica as a character, I wasn't fond of her. She did a lot of things that I didn't like. I don't think she was a good person. And there were little things, like she was walking through the park. I think she was like eating ice cream or something, and she didn't want to finish it, so she just threw it on the ground instead of like finding a trash can, which I hate that. It was just weird. She was doing a whole bunch of things that she was like, I can do this because nobody's gonna tell me no. Besides that, I DNF'd this because it was really slow. I just didn't see any progress in the story or the plot, and I didn't see it going anywhere. And of course, when I feel like I'm wanting to DNF a book, I go to Goodreads and I look at the lower star reviews, and people were saying that the ending was really bad and it wasn't getting any better. So I usually try to push through books, but pretty much everyone was saying that the ending wasn't any better, so I decided to DNF this. Unfortunately, first read of the month was a DNF, but I did have a good read. Next, which was A Quarter Mist and Fury. I am doing reading vlogs, full spoiler reading vlogs on this whole series, so I do have a full video dedicated to this book, so I won't talk much on this. I rated this a 4.75, I believe. I really liked how the story picked up in this. I really like all the characters we got introduced to. I was waiting to get introduced to those characters, and I really do like them a lot. It's like a found family. That's one of my favorite tropes in books. The only thing that kept me from rating this one a 5 stars is because I'm still unsure about Farah. I really like her as a main character, but there's just some things that she does or that she says that I can't really get over yet. So I know that I'm gonna grow to like her at this point in the series. I'm not 100% rooting for her. I'm really excited to continue the series and see where it goes. I really like this one a lot. I think there's a lot going on that is keeping me intrigued. That's all I'll say about this one, but if you want to know all my thoughts, you can go watch my reading vlog on this book. Next, I have my little poetry book. This is Time Will Tell by Courtney Peppernell. I'm not huge on poetry. I do have a few poetry books. Usually I see a poem posted online, and then it makes me want to buy the book that it was from. There's a couple books that I've done that for. I find myself just liking that poem and maybe a couple others, but I don't really like the book as a whole. So I am hesitant about picking up poetry books. This one, it's so cute. The cover's adorable. There's little illustrations in here. Like there's different parts and then there's just illustrations, and I think it's really adorable. But for me, I wasn't a fan of the poetry in this one too much. I have 3 tabs in here, so obviously there were a few that I liked. Any form of art is heavily related to love most of the time. I honestly don't really like that, so when poetry books are all about romantic relationships and everything, I'm not a huge fan of that, and a lot of the poems in here were. So it just wasn't for me. I don't rate poetry books, so I don't have a rating for this one, but there were a few in here that I liked. I just wasn't too pleased on the other ones. I'll talk about these 2 together. So this, if you watch my blind date with a book video, I got this one, which is the second book in a duology. So I had to buy the first one in order to read the one that I got for my blind date video. I love these books so much. I can't even tell you. This one will probably be my favorite read of the year. I don't know if another book is going to pass this one up. If it does, I will be so surprised. This is 6 Crimson Cranes and the Dragon's Promise by Elizabeth Lim. This is a YA fantasy duology. There actually is a 3rd book coming out that kind of is a prequel to these 2. No, it is out. I lied. It's out, but I'm waiting for the paperback to come out, so that's why I said that it wasn't out yet. Okay, these 2 though, Perfection. Love them so much. 5 stars. I did give this one a 4.75 just because I didn't like it as much as 6 Crimson Cranes. We can say 6 stars and 5 stars if we're being real. This is about our main character, Shiori. She is living in this kingdom and she is the princess. She is about to be betrothed to this prince a little north of them in a different kingdom, and she doesn't want to do that like any young fantasy girl in a book. She doesn't want to get married off to someone that she doesn't know. Understandable. I wouldn't do it either. She has a stepmother, and her stepmother is a little sketchy. They don't really know anything about her. She doesn't give her real name or anything. Shiori feels like her stepmother hates her. She has a little bit of magic. She has this little paper crane that's like her best friend. She brought it to flight by her magic, and magic is banned in this world. She couldn't let anybody know that she has this little bit of magic. So one day her brother finds out that she does have magic. This whole thing goes down. Her stepmother curses her brothers and her. She is shipped off. She's got a bowl stuck to her head, which sounds so funny, but that is her curse, and she can't speak or her brothers will die with every word that she speaks. And her brothers got turned into cranes, so hence the name 6 Crimson Cranes. She has 6 brothers, explainable. But it's just this whole journey with her trying to break this curse and figure out this story behind her stepmother and who she is, and then also trying to figure out her magic and what she can do with her magic. And it's so good. There's so much action in these books. You never have a dull moment. It is just constant things happening, things changing, adventure all the time, and it's just perfect. I love these so much. I couldn't recommend them more. If you like any sort of YA fantasy or fantasy in general, I recommend picking these up. If you do want more of my thoughts, you can go watch that reading vlog. These give off Studio Ghibli vibes. They're just perfect, and I love them, and I will love them forever. Next up, this was, I guess, my first romance read of the month. I think I read this like right after Valentine's Day, but this is Love in the Time of Serial Killers by Alicia Thompson. I read With Love from Cold World by her last month, and I really liked it. I gave it a 5 stars, so I wanted to pick this book up by her because I really liked her writing in that one. This is about our main character, Phoebe. She is really into true crime, which I can't relate to that. I think if you can maybe relate to liking true crime, you might like this book a little more. It didn't talk too much about it, but it was just like the feelings and the thoughts that she had. So, I mean, I did think she was crazy for the thoughts that she had. Her father actually recently passed away, and she doesn't live near her hometown, so she actually moved back for a little bit to renovate her father's house in order to sell it, and then her brother is there, so they're kind of working on it together. I really enjoyed her relationship with her and her brother. I thought they were very sweet together. The rest of the story, basically, she has this neighbor who she's really sketchy about. As she's moving back to her dad's house for a little bit, he comes over and he's trying to help her move this desk, but he kind of scares her. Her being into true crime and thinking everybody is dangerous, which you should feel that way, but it was a little intense for her. She was very skeptical about him. He's literally just her neighbor, and he was doing normal things, like literally nothing to where she should have been questioning him. But he was in his garage one night, and it was like 11 p.m. literally minding his own business on his property, not disturbing everybody, and she's just like trying to figure out what he's doing, like watching him and stuff. So she's the creep in this scenario, but she's thinking that he's a serial killer. And at that point I was like, girl, you're insane. Like, you're the one who's up at 11 p.m. trying to figure out what someone else is doing at their own house. She's like, why is he up at 11 p.m.? What is he doing in his garage? Like, is that blood on the floor? Go to bed. Mind your own business. What are you doing? I didn't like that aspect of this. It was kind of cringy too. I just didn't click with the romance. I didn't think that they really had chemistry together. I thought it was a little weird. That's basically the moral of the story, is that she just goes to renovate her dad's house, and then she meets this neighbor, and it's just their romance. I was like, I don't remember when I rated this, but I rated this one a 2 stars. So yeah, didn't love it. I personally would not recommend this to anybody, but if you think it would be something for you, of course, read it. Read any book that you want to read. But if you maybe come to my channel for any recommendations, I personally would not say to read this one. Next we have Ruthless Vows, which is the completion of the, is this called something specific or just Divine Rivals? Letters of Enchantment, maybe? I think that's correct. Anyway, this follows Divine Rivals. I really love Divine Rivals. I gave that, I think, a 4.5 stars. And listen, I think by the ending of Divine Rivals, I knew that I wasn't gonna like this book as much. This one to me seemed like a long epilogue. I don't feel like there was much going on. I think we had to wait a long time for things to start happening, and then once they did happen, it felt like they happened very fast, and then we were in this kind of long stretch of time until something else happened. So there was a lot of time passing that didn't keep me wanting to read it. I still enjoyed this. I gave it a 3 stars, but I don't know. I just don't think I liked where the story went and how this kind of tied off. Of course, there were parts in this book that I really liked. I love the characters in this book and Divine Rivals. I wasn't a fan of where the story went. I think the first one just had so much magic and like a great atmosphere to it. It was such a nice place that I was in when I read Divine Rivals, so when I read this one I was expecting the same thing, but I didn't really get that. I don't have too much to say about this one. It was good, it wasn't great. 3 stars in the middle. Next up, I'm going to talk about these two together. So this is There Are No Saints and There Is No Devil by Sophie Lark. These are the first books that I've read by this author. This is a dark romance about a serial killer and this girl who is an artist. They're both artists, but our one guy, I don't want to say he's a serial, well, okay, I guess he is kind of a serial killer because he's killed multiple people. So it's dark. I haven't read too much dark romance, barely any at all, and I don't think dark romance is for me. I think I've kind of discovered that after this book. I just don't see the romance with the dark elements. Like, I just don't necessarily want to read about someone falling in love with a serial killer, because why would you do that? You know, but it's fiction and it makes for a good story, but I just don't think it's something that I would continue reading, or this genre is something that I would continue with. I think I'll pick up books here and there. It won't be something that I'm like dying to pick up. These two, we follow Cole and Mara. So Mara is struggling with her art and her job. She's working like 3 different jobs trying to make enough to pay for her bills and everything. And she is a struggling artist. Cole is rich and he sells his artwork. He goes to all these art events. He can sell his art for a lot of money. There is another character, Alistair, and he is also a killer. Basically, they're all 3 at this art event together, and Cole notices Mara, but he sees, the way he notices her is that he's like, you can tell she doesn't have money. She looks a little rough. He's kind of judging her based on her appearance and just making assumptions about her and her life. And Alistair comes over to Cole, and they're rivals. They have issues with each other. Alistair is kind of like, oh, do you like that girl? Do you want her or whatever? And Cole's like, no, don't know her, it's whatever. So Mara ends up getting kidnapped, ends up escaping. Cole is there. Cole really likes the idea that Mara escaped. He's like, okay, she's a cool person because she could get out of that situation. And basically from there, they just develop their friendship and their relationship, and they are both trying to take Alistair down for what he does and what he did. I did actually really enjoy the first one. I gave it a 4 stars. I think it was mostly because I am pretty new to dark romance, so it was interesting to read. It was picking up, and you know, there was quite a bit going on, so I was intrigued most of the time. Is it the greatest thing in the entire world? No, I wouldn't say that, but I literally read this book in one day. I couldn't put it down. I can't even explain what it was about it, but I just, like, I had to keep reading. And I'm not even, like, I can't even say that it's one of the best books I've ever read, because it wasn't, but I just enjoyed it a lot, and that's where the 4-star rating is coming from, because that's how I rate my books. And then this one is the conclusion to this duology. Once again, just like Ruthless Vows, I feel like this was an extended epilogue, and I don't think that it should have been an entire book. It didn't have the same effect as the first one at all. These books are pretty short. I think they're just over 300 pages, so this one could have been trimmed down and put into this book, and it could have been one book, and I probably would have really enjoyed it. Obviously, we had to conclude the story, so this was necessary, but I think it should have just been in the first one. I mean, overall, I did enjoy them. Did I say I gave this 2 stars? I don't remember. I forget everything. Decent reads. I did enjoy my time with them, but probably won't think about them again. Alright, next up, I do have my second DNF of the month. This is The Long Game by Elena Armas. I was really hoping to like this one. I thought I was going to. I did not at all. I tried to push through this one. I was skimming, which I shouldn't do. I should just stop when I know that I literally hated it from the first 2 chapters. I'm gonna be so honest with you. I don't know why I continued. I was just like, I have to see if it gets better. It didn't. I enjoyed The Spanish Love Deception by her, and then I love The American Roommate Experiment, so I was like, her books are only getting better. I'm so excited for this one, and I was so let down. I'm so sad. We have our main character, Adeline, and she is, I don't even really know what she does for work. She works for this big soccer company, I think, or the sports networking company. Her dad is the CEO. She gets into this fight with the mascot. Someone records it, so it goes viral. Her dad ends up firing her and sending her off to North Carolina to do some other job that she has no idea what she's about to do. And there was just so much in the beginning of this book that seems so unrealistic, and I could not get over. I couldn't stop thinking about how unrealistic the things were. One, if you get fired and your dad is sending you at another job, like, you're an adult. You can make the choice to not do that and to find a different job yourself. And that was like the main thing that I was like, why are you just letting him ship you off somewhere? You don't even live in that state. She's having to drive very far. And I was like, why would you let him do that to you? Listen, if you don't want any spoilers for this book, skip to when I'm talking about the next book, but I have to say it. I need to talk about these things because they were bothering me so much. They're very minimal and they don't give away anything to the story, but if you just don't want to hear them, don't listen to this part. But basically, she is going to her new place and it's in the middle of the woods. It's this cabin setting. So she's got her GPS on. She's driving, which if you've ever been kind of off skirts and, you know, a little off the map, staying in any sort of cabin area, there's dirt roads, there's woods. You're not going to be driving fast, okay? You're not going to. I've done it and it's just, you're not doing it. So she's driving and first of all, I'm pretty sure she was driving in high heels. Why would you do that? First mistake. Second of all, this book was the biggest ick, I swear. Anyway, she's driving, she hits something, which, okay, this thing was very small, so if it comes out in front of you, you hit it. I can see that. But she hits something else, okay? Hits the second thing. Apparently too hard to where she has to slam her head into the steering wheel, and then she presses the gas and runs into a tree. 3 things that she's hit now. And it's like, first of all, why are you driving this car? I don't think she should be driving anyway. Like, there's no way she would have been driving fast enough to hit something so hard to where she gets flung into her steering wheel. There's no way. Mostly because, okay, the dirt road, and she's trying to figure out where she needs to go. She's literally on the property of this cabin, driving around the cabin. She's literally there. You're not driving fast enough for all this to happen. One other thing that I have to say, there was many things, but I just have to talk about this one last thing. Something happens in her cabin. She gets scared. She sleeps in her car. And then this guy comes out knocking on her window, wondering why she's sleeping in her car. He's looking out for her. Okay. She wakes up. She goes, the window rolls down. The window can only roll down by a button if your car's on. Why is your car on if you're sleeping in the car? That's not safe. So then at that point I was like, I can't do this anymore. I cannot do this book. Also, this is where my romance rant is gonna come in and why I'm drifting far from the romance category, because so many books I'm reading are so cringy and the characters, they're trying to be rom-coms, but they're not funny. I think authors are trying to make a rom-com happen with some sort of like enemies to lovers or rivals to lovers. I don't really think that should be in a romance book because most of the time it's not a good reason for them to be enemies and it's just the most immature thing. And when you're reading a romance book about adults that are in their 30s and their 40s, it's difficult to read about characters who are immature and they're doing things that just don't make sense for an adult. And I don't know, it's pushing me so far away from romance when I read books like this, and a lot of the ones that I've read are doing that for me. And I love romance books, so I don't want to drift away from it, but I need to just find my authors that I like in the romance genre and stick with their books. I need to go on a whole like romance journey type thing to find what type of romance books I like. That way I can stop reading books that are making me hate the genre. And I know that's harsh, but I can't do it anymore. I think this one was the final straw for me. I'm not gonna talk about it. I don't want to be negative on anything. Obviously I have my thoughts about books and I want to share my opinions on them, but I also don't want to come across as completely negative, or I don't want to talk about a book in a mean way. But you know, not everybody loves books they read, which is fine. Sometimes you just get to a point and you gotta rant about it so you can get over it a little bit, and that's what I'm doing. I've hit my point. Anyway, that's all I'm gonna say. Next, I read okay. Next, I read Go Set a Watchman by Harper Lee. This was published in 2015. This was actually written before To Kill a Mockingbird. I want to say I read that book in 10th grade, like my sophomore year of high school. I don't remember much about it. Of course, when I found out that this book had gotten published, I wanted to read it just because I had read To Kill a Mockingbird. I didn't rate this book. I didn't like it. We're dealing with a time, not even with the book itself, but in the time that this book was written, people had different views than what they do today. They didn't have good views and they weren't accepting of people. So it's hard to read a book written in that time because of course the subjects in the book and the themes in the book are not ones that I'm going to be happy about. I was really hoping for this book to end up with at least one person being fully accepting of colored people, and we went backwards, and I was just very, very upset with the ending because I thought we were gonna get progression and we didn't. So if you know To Kill a Mockingbird, you have Scout as a main character, or one of the main characters. This is her when she is 26. She has lived in New York and she's coming back to Alabama. And first I just didn't really understand the reasoning for the plot of this book. She came back and then, you know, she had her time in Alabama and she saw like what it still was compared to New York. There was past and present timelines in this book, and I didn't see the point in the past timelines. And the present timeline was just, I don't know, there wasn't much happening, and I don't think it really gave to a story. I just didn't understand the point of this one. I just don't think it should have been published, if I'm being honest. Lastly, I read All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. This is a romance book. So I will say, me and Mariana Zapata, I've said this before, we don't really have a good track record going on here. This is, I believe, the 4th book I read by her. I've only liked one other one, which is From Lukov with Love. This is, I think, the second to last newest one by her. So all of the other books that I read by her were written a while ago. I really love slow burn, so I want to like her books so bad because she does the perfect slow burn, and that's what I want in a romance book. The plot of this one is the one that has interested me most compared to all of her other books. I knew that I had to give this one a shot, see if I liked it. I just really wanted to read this for the plot. This follows our main character, Aurora. She and her mom were very close. She goes back to her hometown in Colorado to just try to find a home there. She didn't want to be in big cities anymore, so she kind of goes off into Colorado in the mountains, and she's just finding her little quiet life there. She rents this Airbnb type thing, which we have our main character Rhodes. He is the love interest. It's on his property, it's like above his garage, and his son is actually the one who was renting it out and he didn't know. So there was this whole like debacle there, and Aurora's like, this man hates me, but he was like, you can stay here for a month, that's it, and then you gotta go. It's kind of a little enemies to lovers, but this was done in the right way and I really enjoyed it. While she's there, she's going on hikes because her mom was a huge hiker. Her mom went missing years ago. She's just trying to find her place and kind of get back to the times where her life was good with her mom and to where she really enjoyed things. She goes hiking, and I really love that because I enjoy hiking. I like being outside. So this book is right up my alley. I actually really love this one. I gave it a 4.25. There were many conflicts in this. There were a lot of subplots and I love that, but I was hoping the conflict would stay within those subplots because there was enough conflict to make the story. But of course we had to bring in the relationship, and there was a conflict there. I didn't like that conflict. I don't think it was necessary. So that's what brought it down for me. Also, he was calling her, he gave her a pet name before they had even declared that they liked each other, and I'm iffy about pet names too. That's just a personal opinion. So that's what brought it down a little bit too. Other than that, the characters in this book, amazing. Found family, amazing. The relationships between everybody was so sweet. Love the plot. This is a very long book. It's, I think, almost 550 pages, and for a romance that's crazy, but this had enough of separate plot lines and enough going on to where it wasn't rough to get through at all. If you don't like slow burn, do not read this book, but I love it. The slower the burn, the more I like it. I could see a ton of improvement in her writing in this one, and I'm really happy with that. I'm hoping that in the future, when she writes more books, if the storyline is something that I feel like I would like, I think now I can pick them up. I was iffy about it before, but this book really did it for me, so hopefully I can get back on track with new books that she may release in the future. That is it for this wrap up. Those are all of my books. I said in my last video I was going to tell you my favorite book each month because I'm doing this bracket thing in my reading journal where I try to figure out what my favorite book is of the whole entire year. This month, I'm pretty sure I already said this, but 6 Crimson Cranes. Perfect. I love it. Favorite book of February, maybe my favorite book of the year. I'm saying this now. We can look back on this video at the end of the year. It's gonna be very hard to pass this one up. That is it. Those are my reads. Thanks for hanging out with me and talking about the books that I read this month of February. I will see you guys in my next video, whatever that may be. Let me know what your favorite read of February was. I will see you later. Bye.